World leaders have one goal for today's meetings in Brussels: find a way to pressure Russia into ending the war in Ukraine. I want to bring in Robert Bell to give us his analysis of these summits so far. He's a former defense advisor to the U.S. ambassador to NATO, appointed by former President Barack Obama. He was also an assistant secretary general at NATO, and he is a distinguished professor of the practice at Georgia Tech. It's great to see you, sir. So this meeting of NATO leaders came together quickly. What does the urgency tell you about how they plan on handling what's happening in Ukraine going forward?
Well, there was urgency because they had three big tasks that required answers at the highest level of government across the alliance. First, what more could NATO do to help Ukraine win this war, or at least bring it to an acceptable negotiated outcome? Second, in the immediate future, how should NATO reposture its deterrent forces in the eastern parts of alliance territory to make sure that Russia isn't tempted to cross any NATO lines there? And then last, with a big summit coming up this summer in June in Madrid, where NATO's supposed to adopt a new strategy for the next 10 years, they need to start talking now about what NATO's relationship with Russia will be once the war is over. Will we have a new Cold War, a new policy of containment, or will there be areas where NATO will still try to engage Russia cooperatively?
So we're hearing now from President Biden that there are going to be new sanctions announced. We have been hearing for a while that there will be crippling sanctions. They don't seem to be working. Are sanctions still a realistic option to get Vladimir Putin to slow down?
I think it's a matter of degree. I wouldn't go so far as to say sanctions are not working, unless you define that as bringing an immediate end to the war. It's clear that the sanctions are imposing severe economic cost on Russia, and that's beginning to create some fault lines among oligarchs and elites, if you will, within Russian society. But you're right to say that economic sanctions standing alone have not brought Putin to make concessions that we are insisting that he must make. That's more likely in the next weeks going to be as a result of things that are happening on the battlefield, where Ukraine now is increasingly back in an offensive mode rather than just defense.
President Biden said yesterday that there's a, quote, real threat that Russia could use chemical weapons. Based on your experience, is that a major concern?
Yes, absolutely, for three reasons. First, Russia's already used chemical weapons. In violation of the Chemical Weapons Treaty that it signed that went into force in 1997. The organization in The Hague that monitors and implements the Chemical Weapon Treaty determined that Russia used banned chemical agent substances when they attacked Mr. Navalny and Mr. Skripal. So we know that Russia has a supply of weapons in violation of their obligations under that treaty. Second, Russia has been assisting Syria in its air attacks against rebels in Syria. And that same organization in The Hague determined that on at least three different occasions, a couple of years ago, the Syrian Air Force was delivering chemical weapons, both chlorine gas and sarin. And then last, as you know, from the last several weeks, the U.S. administration has been very quick to push intelligence out as soon as it's derived from whatever sources we're using to try to preempt moves that Russia may make. And the fact that our government is speaking at the highest level so candidly about possible Russian efforts to create some false flag pretext for a use of chemical weapons suggests to me, and I'm not reading the raw intelligence myself, but it suggests to me that our intelligence community has picked up indications that Russia is thinking in that direction.
As you know, the world has been impressed with the way the Ukrainian military has been able to keep Russia at bay, or at least slow the progression. We're getting reports now that there are many more Russian troops who have been killed than Russia is willing to admit to. But the question is, how long do you think the Russian military will be able, or rather the Ukrainian military will be able to slow Russia's progression? How long can they keep up the fight?
I think the Ukrainian military is willing to keep up the fight for as long as it takes. It's extremely impressive how determined and really in the north and the east how successful they've been. I think the harder question is on the south, where except for those who are still holding out in Mariupol, which is going to be sort of like the Alamo for Ukraine in the same sense that the Alamo was a rallying cry for Texas in our country. Russia's got a land bridge now from Russia proper over across the coastline of the Sea of Azov. The question is, if Putin is unwilling to make concessions to get out of this, can the Ukrainian counteroffensive include a counteroffensive in the south to open up gaps in that land bridge? I think the attack that's being reported this morning on the Russian fleet along that coastline and the sinking of some major combatant ships is a very hopeful sign.
Robert Bell, thank you for your insight.
Thank you.